Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Sumaya Oscri, and in this first part of our explainer on social media advertising, we're going to get into how advertising completely changed. It went from basically shouting at you to actually talking with you. We're going to look at those key moments that turned a one-way street into a massive two-way conversation. So here's our roadmap. We'll start back in the age of traditional media, then check out the first little sparks of digital connection, and finally see how the customer really took the wheel in today's social worlds. All right, let's jump right in. Okay, so to really get a handle on just how big this revolution was, we've got to rewind a bit. Let's take a look at what the world of advertising was like before social media came along and flipped the whole script. Think about it. It wasn't that long ago, right? Communication between brands and you, the consumer, was pretty much just a one-way street. You had your classic TV commercial or a glossy magazine ad. The brand did all the talking, and the audience, well, we just listened. There wasn't really another option. This was what you might call the era of the old guard. Brands would pour a ton of money into crafting what they thought was the perfect message, and then they'd just blast it out to everyone. They controlled every single word. But what about feedback? Trying to figure out if anyone was actually listening. That was super slow and almost impossible to measure. You could drop millions on a campaign and not have a clue if it worked for weeks, maybe even months. But then, something started to shift. The internet started bubbling up, and it began planting the seeds for a huge disruption. You could say that monologue was about to get a very, very loud interruption. And right here, you can see the first little cracks forming in that old wall. These early digital platforms were the first signs that everything was about to change. It started with the first spam email. Yeah, super annoying, but it was still a direct message. Then you had forums like Usenet, where people could actually talk back and share ideas. And then bam, 1997 gives us 6 Degrees, the first real social network. The game was officially changing. And what's so cool is that the whole idea behind these networks was based on a psychological theory from the 60s, 6 degrees of separation. The theory is that you can connect any two people on the entire planet through just a handful of mutual friends. That concept, it basically became the blueprint for the social networks that were about to connect the whole world. So moving into the early 2000s, that idea just exploded. A whole wave of new platforms popped up, and they created this brand new kind of digital public square where suddenly everybody had a voice. You remember this, right? Platforms like MySpace, then Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, they all just burst onto the scene one after another. Each one offered these new, really exciting ways for people, and pretty soon for brands, to interact directly. It wasn't just about consuming media anymore. It was about creating it, sharing it, and talking about it. Now, 2007, that year was a total game changer. Why? Because that's when Facebook launched its business pages. It might not seem like a huge deal now, but believe me, it was. This was the formal, official invitation for brands to come and join the conversation in a real, structured way. And of course, with all these new platforms came a totally new set of rules for how you promote things and build a brand. The old playbook? It was basically useless overnight. This slide really just nails the whole shift. Look at it. We went from a one-way broadcast to a two-way dialogue. We went from total brand control to actual user contribution. And this is huge. The focus changed from just reaching an audience to actually building a community with them. Even back in 2009, researchers like Mangold and Faulds saw what was happening. They called it a new hybrid element. And that's exactly what it was. This wasn't just another channel like TV or radio. It was something totally different. A mix of traditional promotion and all these peer-to-peer conversations that marketers had absolutely no control over. And that brings us to what is, without a doubt, the most important transformation of all. I'm talking about the massive shift in power from the brand to the consumer. Now look, social media didn't invent word of mouth. People have always talked about brands they love or hate. But what social media did was hand that conversation a global megaphone. It transformed it into what we call electronic word of mouth, or EWOM, where one person's opinion could suddenly literally be seen by millions. And if you need just one story to really understand this incredible power shift, this is the one. So there was this musician, Dave Carroll, and his guitar got smashed by United Airlines baggage handlers. He spent 9 months trying to get them to pay for it, and the company just flat out ignored him. So what did he do? He didn't just write an angry letter. Nope.
He wrote a song about his experience, made a pretty clever music video, and he posted it on YouTube. And you know what happened next? It went viral. We're talking instantly viral.
Get this, just 2 years later, it was estimated that his message, his one song, had reached something like 100 million people through views, news stories, and shares. That all came from one single customer with one broken guitar and a YouTube account. Incredible. And that right there is the key takeaway. That one story from one customer had a bigger, faster, and honestly more lasting impact on United's reputation than a multi-million-dollar ad campaign ever could. The consumer wasn't a passive target anymore. The consumer was now an active creator, a participant in the brand story. So when you step back and look at the whole journey, it's pretty amazing. This shift from one-way broadcasting to two-way engagement is really the fundamental context you need to understand any kind of modern marketing. We moved from a controlled monologue to this messy, unpredictable, but incredibly powerful global conversation. Which leaves us with a really fascinating question to think about, doesn't it? If advertising has become this massive conversation, who's actually writing the script? Is it the brand, the algorithm, the influencers, or is it the consumer? The real answer is that it's a constant push and pull. And the brands that really get it, they're the ones who've learned how to stop talking and start listening.